Have you ever considered that we are living in a unique time, that something world-changing is about to happen, and that it might concern you? If so, you're in the right place. Keep listening, and you'll hear thought-provoking views behind the news that point to a new and better future for all. Many people now sense that humanity is not alone. So consider this. If the Christ or the Buddha walked among us today as modern men, would we recognize them? What would they be saying? And most importantly, would we listen? Every Sunday on this program, Share International Radio, we'll examine extraordinary events that are unfolding behind the headline news. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for. And now, welcome to this week's show.
Greetings all. This is your host, Diana Gold-Holland, broadcasting from Vancouver, and yes, with a message of all for sure for everyone. It's a very great honor today to be hosting a show on miracles with the producer of our show, Frances Oman. She is a writer and TV producer who has won numerous awards for her documentaries about miracles and the emergence of Maitreya. Her work has been seen on PBS and the Discovery Channel, and she is now making a new documentary called Countdown to Now, Quantum Leap for Planet Earth. It documents the fulfillment of predictions made by Maitreya, the world teachers, decades ago about our current crises and the grassroots solutions now in progress. So it's my very great honor and excitement to welcome you, Frances. How are you?
I'm just great.
Okay, that's good. So, to begin with, tell us what a maven is and what led you to become the Miracle Maven.
Yes, well, a maven is actually a Yiddish word originally, and it just means an expert or a connoisseur. And since about, should I say how many years ago? Let's just call it decades ago.
We know where that's coming from.
I was a meditator and a student of various new thought practices. And I was realizing that my greatest creativity as an artist and as a journalist, because I have both skills as my background, they all flourished, both the art and the writing, when I approached my work with a vision that anything is possible. Not like I believe, I could build a skyscraper with my baby finger tomorrow, anything is possible. But just looking at my life and then seeing what kind of draws me forward. And so when I heard Benjamin Creme speak in San Francisco, and he talked about the possibility of really ending hunger. Well, I happened to have been a videographer for the Hunger Project when I went to hear Mr. Creme, so I was already on board. It was actually quite a few years later that I connected the dots, because when Earhart, who founded the Hunger Project, originally announced the Hunger Project, he said to, I don't know how many, it was probably a auditorium full of 1,000 people, he said, sometime around now, there's been a shift in the wind. The end of hunger is an idea whose time has come. And later, years later, when I connected the dots, I realized that he said that 2 weeks after Maitreya made his first appearance on this planet in Nairobi, Kenya. He appeared out of thin air, did several healings, and then disappeared. This was corroborated. We've talked about it on other shows.
About it on other shows. So this was about 2 weeks after that.
Yeah, so I figured that was pretty much a miracle, and I was feeling pretty smug about being on a right path and everything. So it was also covered on CNN. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I was definitely on a path, and my skills were in videography, so my background in art really art was a spiritual practice for me. And between the art and the approach I had to documenting facts, fact-checking in my work, was an odd combination, but a perfect one for somebody who was going to set out to document miracles.
Wow, yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of our listeners would think, first and foremost of those religious ones that are occurring, the bleeding statues and the oil smelling of roses and, those kinds of miracles that are happening for the religious people. But, you and I both contend that there are other kinds of miracles happening that are just as miraculous, and that includes political things like the fall of the Berlin Wall and peace miracles of that type, the various rapprochements that occur suddenly, and people say, what happened between those enemies? And so we have religious miracles, we have political miracles, and we have peace miracles as well. And also all of the healing miracles that I know you have many stories on that front, and we talked about several of those with Patricia Pichon. I just wanted to mention that if listeners go to our website, they can see some shots of another one of these religious ones that occurred this week when the image of a beautiful image of the Virgin Mary appeared in a window in kind of oil slick type colors. So that's and there was one.
Was that in Marietta, Georgia?
That's the Marietta, Georgia one, and people of all religious persuasions are flocking to see that because
that's unusual.
Well, no, not really, because most of the miracles things that I followed up do attract people because it awakens in them. They want to see it for themselves, and then it awakens in them somehow a feeling of expectancy, of hope that, something's going on here. The mystery of it draws people, and they want to see it with their own eyes.
When I was working on my Crosses of Light documentary, what I was surprised at when you said that is when I was doing that documentary, there were throngs of people in line, and the police were out in force just kind of keeping order. Not that there was any danger, but, just directing traffic around all the lines. But they were all deeply devout Christians. So when you said that at this new miracle in Georgia that happened this week, that people of all different religions are going, that's what's happening, is things are happening amongst all the different religions. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of commonalities between the religions, and, quite apart from the things you mentioned that are the most commonly known, Christian miracles, there's miracles happening in so many different religions that people don't hear about. In fact, what?
Let me just stop you for a second.
Yeah.
Because you know what? The thing is that yes, they're miracles, but to me, they're signs.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they're all connected. Well,
like what about your white buffalo story that you told me about?
I was working on a 3-part series on miracles with the Discovery Channel called Miracle Quest, and one of the stories we did was on the white buffalo born, and as a sign to the Native Americans of a great coming of a new spiritual time. But another one was a red heifer that was born, and the Jewish tradition is that when a red heifer is born, and in both cases, a white buffalo and a red heifer, it's like 1 in a million. So it really, they didn't have any lineage of white or red in them at all.
Right. So they were real miracles.
Yeah. And so when I interviewed a rabbi for the Crosses of Light documentary, he said also that many of the Jewish scholars say this is the time when the Messiah comes. So that was interesting. Then in the Muslim religion, they don't believe in using graven images. I don't know if they call it graven images, but they don't use iconography. That's
right.
in their religion at all. So the miracles that have been happening within the Muslim faith for those people have been things like this lovely young Muslim girl who was crying tears of crystal that were so sharp that, they were coming out of the corners of her eyes and they weren't cutting her at all. And she said when interviewed that she had first had a vision of a man on a white horse. Now, it's a tradition, a Buddhist tradition, that the great new teacher is going to come. There's a Himalayan legend that the great new teacher will come on all dressed in white, and a white horse, and that's what she described.
Right, that was the legend of the Chintamani stone.
Yeah.
But, remember we reported previously on this, the white horse is also a very powerful symbol for Muslims, and that's what this girl was.
Yes, and then at Tahrir Square on CBS, see, the cool thing is, I just like to collect things and put them all together and see what they mean together, and that's what I've been doing with miracles. So when Tahrir Square was happening, and on CBS News, here is this glowing image of a person dressed in white on a white horse driving through the crowds. It looks kind of like a ghost, but it was definitely in there. It was on several different broadcast stations. Yeah. And so there's that white horse again. And the thing is...
Francis, just a sec. Hold that thought, because we have to go to break.
Oh, my gosh.
Just as we do, I want to direct people to our website where they can see...
our Facebook. It's the Facebook
sorry, on Facebook, I'm sorry, where they can see many of the miracle stories with pictures and explanations. It's all kinds of goodies on the site now.
Share on the Air Radio on Facebook.
That's right.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Maitreya's Mission, the book by Benjamin Krem, is a riveting exploration of life ahead. It reveals how the World Teacher, Maitreya, and other ancient guardians of the human race are emerging now and are showing us how to release our divine potential. Investigate for yourself at shareontheairradio.org. That's shareontheairradio.org. shareontheairradio.org.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Cielito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
If you remember living fearlessly, joyfully, and in a world filled with adventure, happiness, pleasure, and unbridled living, then this show is for you. Join me, Dame Nicole Brandon, as I bring you the world's top experts in wealth, creativity, flow, seat-edging technology, space, wellness, health, love, lust, and passion, all merging together each week here at the Hub of Happiness. Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific Time and 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Passionate Living, where you can ride on the magic carpet ride of living and learn how to lead a passionately wild, exciting, and outrageously amazing life.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Welcome back. This is Diana Gold Holland of Share on the Air Radio, and my guest today is the producer of our show, a long-term videographer and Miracle Maven, Frances Oman. So, Frances, you have directly experienced some miracles of your own. I'd like you to tell us about that.
I would love to. First, I have to preface it by saying I have, an angel and a devil on each shoulder. I have an angel that's just open to all the miracles in the world and believes so many things. I just do it intuitively, and it's like painting a picture. And then on my other shoulder, I have this little devil, which is a journalist, saying, this really needs to be scientific. And so I really do check my facts, but I've had several miraculous experiences that I have not included in any of my documentary work because I have to maintain my journalistic objectiveness.
Okay, well, tell us one. Tell us something really personal that has touched you.
Okay, well, I went to document the first cross of light that appeared in El Monte, east of Los Angeles. It was glowing through a frosted window, and I was told where it was, and I climbed up a ladder with my camera on my eye. I mean, at my eye at the camera, right, and looked through the window. So I didn't even see the cross with my bare eyes the first time. And I said, oh my God. And this just was like something like physically just went whoosh to my heart. Aww. And so I kept working on the documentary, and I remember one day during that period of time I had severe migraines, and unless I was working on the Cross of Light documentary, I was in bed in pain. There was something about my commitment to the documentary that just got me up, and it was like having blonde hair, blue eyes, and a migraine. Not that I have blonde hair and blue eyes, but I mean, as a metaphor. So I had finished, the fourth or fifth day of interviewing all these people that had been healed of cancer, and they'd been healed of drug addiction, and they'd been...
Yeah, I hear the whole community really changed, like the delinquent kids shaped up and got better grades in schools, and, I heard, weren't there marriages reconciling and all kinds of stuff, really spreading throughout the whole community?
Yeah, absolutely. And so at the end of this one day of interviewing several people, I was sitting there, and I was sitting about 2 feet from one of the crosses of light. I just finished interviewing a woman whose doctor had said she couldn't have another baby because her uterus was ruined. And she was holding the baby that she gave birth to after the doctor did that. And I suddenly realized that I hadn't had any migraine that entire day. They were gone. And I just started weeping. It was just, it's like sometimes you just don't notice when the pain leaves, You're just so used to it. So that was a really important migraine because I'd had migraines severely for 10 years.
Wow.
Another one was not during that filming. It was, in fact, just in my private life. Unlike a lot of other spiritual teachers, Maitreya is not in the habit of manifesting things, out of thin air.
Right.
Although I did hear, the CNN report said that he pulled out of his pocket after he had a cross that was like a glowing, made out of light cross. So, but other than that, he doesn't go around manifesting things. Well, he also appears in all different kinds of guises to people. Some of the listeners have undoubtedly had encounters with him as a homeless person or a very straight businessman or
Okay, but wait a minute. I want to get back to this. He's not usually manifesting things, so obviously he manifested something for you. What's the story?
He did. My dad had died, and I was very depressed. I was prone to depression, and that just sent me into a tailspin, and I didn't think I was going to be able to make it to this business meeting I was supposed to show up at. And I was waiting in the hotel lobby, and along comes this very nondescript, gray-suited businessman walking at a kind of a very strange, quick clip down the center of the lobby, and he just suddenly veered over towards me, and he stuck his hand flat out into the air, right over my lap, and for whatever reason, I stuck my hand straight out in front of me, several inches under his hand, and there in the air between our hands, suddenly there was this shiny silver stone or something that fell into my hand, and I looked at it, and it said hope.
Oh,
there's a picture. One of the people on our team put a picture of that on our Facebook page.
Oh, great. Well, we'll certainly welcome people to go see it.
Well, that's not the end, because the depression completely lifted, and I went to the business meeting and gave a very inspired presentation when I was actually considering going home. So, can I do another one?
Well, let's do another one quick. But let me just make a point here, okay?
Yeah,
like
please.
we always mention this in our show so that people know where we're coming from. That we on this team believe that we are not alone on this planet. That we have help of a very extraordinary time at this extraordinarily difficult moment for our planet, and that help comes in the form of the reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Wisdom. The Christ being also the Messiah for the Jews, the Imam Mahdi for the Muslims, etc., etc. He is, in fact, the world teacher predicted to come at this time at the beginning of this new age. So
predicted
this is our
Gautama Buddha was the one that said another Buddha like myself will come at the dawn of the new age, and his name will be Maitreya, he actually said.
Buddha got that right, but all of the other religions have been predicting the coming, the second coming for the Christians, the Messiah for the Jews, etc. You know, they've all got it there, and there are a lot of people who may be religious, but certainly, you know, there's a tension throughout the world now. We know that the shoe is going to drop somehow, and maybe, just maybe, it won't be, in a bad way. If we call forth the help of these teachers who are working and helping every day in our midst as it is now. Anyways, those are our premises, and we're sticking to them. So let's hear something about the miracles you covered on your Crosses of Light documentary. We've had a question come in on Facebook about that from a listener.
Oh, you mean asking me to tell some things that happened there?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
When you were some of the miracles that you covered in your Crosses of Light documentary.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because what you were saying about the World Teacher being here for people of all religions and also of no religion, because one of the people that had a Cross of Light appear was an atheist. She was a woman who was having a creative block. She was a painter, and she just couldn't paint, and she went into the bathroom, and there, most of these crosses have been manifested on frosted, textured glass in bathrooms, because that's the place that kind of glass occurs. The normal shape if light is shined through one of them is kind of a normal square, but she went in there, and suddenly there was this cross of light, and suddenly her creativity returned, and she painted like crazy, and she was just thrilled. And when I interviewed her, she said the same thing that people clear across town with completely different backgrounds. A Muslim man who had a cross, a devout Catholic who had a cross, and this young woman who was an artist. And they were all saying the same thing, and they had never met each other. They were saying, this means the end of hunger, the end of pollution, the end of war, and I found that to be really amazing. And then 20 years later, I was working with the Discovery Channel on this Miracle Quest series of documentaries. And so they had the idea, well, let's be a little bit skeptical and see if these crosses are still burning over in El Monte, east of Los Angeles.
Right.
But let's not go to one of the Christians. Let's go to the guy who named Muhammad, who was a Muslim, and he had a cross of light. So I said, sure. So when we went back to visit him, the cross was still glowing, and he told a story. He had heard about these crosses, and he was an electronics kind of a guy and interested in stuff like that and wanted to either just prove it or see if it. So he had shown a flashlight through his glass, because there has to be a single point on the other side of the glass. And it was, this...
A single point of light, you mean? Like a flashlight. Okay.
Yeah, like a flashlight. So he shined a flashlight, and it just had this regular square. Well, meanwhile, his baby was born and had a horrible illness. It was some like black spots all over his body, and it was very... And he was sitting there holding the baby in a rocking chair, and suddenly said to himself, he just kind of knew, I've got a cross of light. He went back and tested the same window, and lo and behold, there was a cross of light, and the baby was completely healed. And when they did the Discovery Channel redo of visiting him, his son was at that time going to college. So
fantastic.
So sometimes these things stick around.
I had that kind of thing happen too. I was giving a lecture on the crosses of light one time, and somebody brought me a piece of that glass that they had found in a Value Village, and the cross formed right before my eyes as I held that glass in my hand. It was incredible. Listen, we want to talk about your new documentary when we come back, so let's invite our listeners to stay with us. So good talking to you, Francis.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
Want to help humanity and the planet? Transmission meditation is a simple but powerful way for you and 2 or more friends to do just that and dramatically accelerate your own spiritual growth. You can read the book on transmission meditation free online. Visit shareontheairradio.org for details. That's shareontheairradio.org. shareontheairradio.org.
Hi, this is Julie Geigel.
I'm Maggie Chula.
And I'm Catherine Glass.
And we're the Psychic Angel Channelers. Join us every week here on OMTimes Radio for Angel Talk Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
The angels have heard your call and are here to help.
Are you ready to receive?
Remember your magnificence with Angel Talk Tuesday.
Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com.
Live with Medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences, to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Welcome back, listeners. This is Share on the Air Radio with thought-provoking views behind the news. And we're here with Miracle Maven, Frances Oman. Frances, in answer to a question from a listener, and before we move on to Countdown for Now, can you tell us how people can get to see your documentary, Crosses of Light?
Oh, thank you. Yes, please email us at info@shareontheairradio.org. And we keep repeating that, but there's actually 2 R's in a row between air and radio. So it's shareontheair.org, info@shareontheair.org, and say you'd like to see or get a copy of Crosses of Light video, and it'll come be forwarded to me, and I will let you know the best way to do that.
Okay, that's great. And with that, I invite everyone to go to the Facebook page and look at all the goodies there, including, we'll make sure that the link to this info at shareontheairradio.org is there.
So, by the way, wait, I can't let this pass. When you go to the Facebook page, look at the Cross of Light picture that's there, because people have had extraordinary healings just looking at the cross. You don't have to be in the presence of one. So, yeah, just thought I'd put it out there. Go ahead, Diana.
If we can just put one other thing out there, look at the story of the hand of Maitreya that is there, because that is another extraordinary miracle that we've talked about in other shows. It can be invoked for healing, for psychological problem, and it is a direct connection with Maitreya. He can then work with you to the extent that is karmically allowed. And that's another extraordinary way that he has of helping out. So take a look at that. It's the picture is there. That picture can be used in any form. You can print it off and put it on a piece of paper, on your fridge, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can look at it on the screen, and it's kind of the same thing as these crosses of light that are emanating these blessings to us now. Okay, so let's go back to your documentary, Countdown to Now, Quantum Leap for Planet Earth. First of all, what's it about?
Well, it's about this huge paradigm shift of consciousness that all the new thinking people are talking about, but it's way less airy-fairy than a lot of discussions that are going on. And as you probably know, the term quantum leap is a scientific term. I'm using it as a metaphor for a leap of consciousness because it's about the definition of quantum leap is there's some energy is applied to the photon. I don't know if I have all my scientific knowledge exact, and it suddenly appears in another place. So
sort of like a time warp or something.
Well, sort of. Anyway, I have a marvelous astrophysicist that I interview who also happens to be a Christian minister. How about that for a combo? But that's kind of symbolic of my approach to the show, and my more journalistic and somewhat scientific bent had me respond so strongly when I read that St. Augustine wrote that miracles are, excuse my throat here. Miracles are not contrary to nature. They're contrary to what we think we know about nature. And the masters, Maitreya and the masters, and the space brothers and sisters, they're masters not of other people, but they are masters of science. They are masters of a science that someday we will be able to use too, and we're beginning to learn to use it in this huge shift of consciousness. So in my film...
Well, like how?
Well...
What's in your film?
I am pulling together interviews from people who've been touched by Maitreya. I'm I have a lot of documentary work on the beneficent space brothers and the UFOs and the resistance of the government from telling the truth that they are here to help us. And they have tons of documents. Many countries have put forth their documents.
You actually filmed some crop circles for this Countdown for Now, didn't you?
Yes.
Why did you call it Countdown for Now?
It's called Countdown to Now.
I'm sorry. That's what I meant. Countdown to Now.
Countdown to Now. It's sort of a paradox, isn't it? Countdown to Now. And that's part of what I mean because, and I do want to get back to the, when we went up in the airplane and filmed the crop circle. That was very exciting. But I got too many thoughts cooking at the same time here. What did you say? Oh, why did I call it Countdown to Now?
Right.
Well, because, Gautama Buddha said that we create our future with our thoughts. And we do that now. So, yes, it's a paradox, but it works. And my film really helps to dispel what we think we know. So we can be open to all of these calling cards, all these signs and miracles, and unprecedented demonstrations in the street, the voice of the people. And for the first time in our planetary history, cooperation at the level that happened for the Paris Climate Summit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it didn't begin to handle. Well, it did begin to handle it, and it's not total for sure. But my God, the whole world hasn't ever done something like that. So these things are all related to each other, and the things that I'm documenting, pretty much they're all in the news. But people hear about one thing one place, one thing another place, and no one sees that they're all together and that there's this scientific thing happening of creating, when the masters create miracles in different religions, they do it in a way that the different religions will actually know that for them this is something's afoot.
Right. Well, like the one of the ones in that glossy I was telling people about is in Muslim homes, they're splitting open fruits and vegetables, and they're finding, the calligraphy for, there is one God, but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. I'm sorry, I may be misquoting that, but there is a famous saying, there is one God, but Allah. And so the calligraphy for that kind of thing is showing up when people you go to cook and you cut open an eggplant or a tomato or what have you. And the reason that I find that so significant is, as we said, the Muslim people do not use images of, so they wouldn't get, or statues or things like that. So they don't get the statues of the Virgin Mary that's, exhorting people to come together and save the world. They get something that works for them.
Yeah, and for those of you who are skeptical about tomatoes and eggplants having writing in them, another Muslim miracle that happened was this little goat was born, little white goat, and in very clear black calligraphy it said the same thing.
Right. There was also another story in Share International years ago about some person that had to feed a lot of people and got some chickpeas with crosses or with some kind of symbology on them, and managed to feed many, many more times the number of people that we would normally feed with that. I'm sorry, you just sparked me with that particular one as well, going back to the food. Anyways, the point is that these are all signs for all different people so that they can find that kernel of hope and expectancy that maybe it's not all this bleak. Maybe there is something really magical happening, and that they would get to participate. And
in this film I'm working on right now, I'm really, by the way, I feel like Maitreya is going to be making himself known with the other masters very soon. I mean, I'm guessing 6 months or something, and I'm no expert. However, it just feels like all these predictions are coming to pass. And I don't have time to finish my documentary, Countdown to Now. So I've decided to start putting it up in segments on YouTube.
Fantastic. I want you to tell us. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I want you to tell us about this. YouTube with Countdown to Now.
Yeah, you can actually, I started the channel. It's got nothing on it but the name. But this morning I was editing the first clip, and this afternoon I'll be putting it in. And then from time to time I will put clips, and you'll be able to subscribe. So each time I put up a new clip from the documentary, you can actually see many of these stories that we're covering in this radio show. And, there's a general commitment to thinking that we'll always have hunger, injustice, and war. And I really want to pull together, like you said, political, economic, social, spiritual, all these different kinds of miracles and breakthroughs that are happening in the world, because they're making a point that if they're real, if they do have to do with this one story that we're gutsy enough to keep talking about for 40 years or 30 years, I guess, with all of these things happening, maybe there is a possibility for help to bring our values to pass. So what people can do is to take a stand for not necessarily believing what they think. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but to really approach things scientifically, like anything is possible. Scientists have to do that. I mean, they mostly don't. They take a hypothesis, and then they go and see if it's true. And I just invite people to do that, because then what's going to happen is that you're going to see actions to take that you would not have seen before. And maybe after the break, I can talk about how the media has been totally uninterested in our story.
Well, I want to talk as well about some of these miracles that we, the people, can be creating right here, right now. And
yes.
We'll see you the other side.
Okay.
Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. Your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
Now there's a book about UFOs that stands out. British author Benjamin Creme has worked directly with the Space Brothers and writes about their spiritual mission in The Gathering of the Forces of Light, a truly inspiring book. Visit shareontheairradio.org for details. That's shareontheairradio.org. shareontheairradio.org.
Dr. Kevin here, and I want to invite you every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, to join me on the Dr. Kevin Show, where we have a diversity of guests who help you step outside the box, behind the curtain, and see what a load of crap is going on in the world today, so you have more information with which to make better decisions. We'll see you there. Namaste.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know. I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back, folks. We're here with videographer Francis Oman, the Miracle Maven. And Francis, I need to take this in a different direction just briefly, because we've had a question come in to the show from a newbie who is wondering who Maitreya is. So, clear as that may be to us, we really need to fill that in.
Well, it sort of starts with a fact that used to even be in the Bible but got deleted about 600 AD, which is about reincarnation. All of us, according to most religions, including Christianity before that got changed, teach that we keep coming back and we keep learning more, and we keep evolving. And our amongst us, brothers and sisters, our brother who has made the least mistakes and made the fastest evolution is Maitreya. So for the person that's that evolved, he takes on this title of the World Teacher and works with humanity from behind the scenes. Now, he also appeared in relationship to other religions, and I'm not going to go into all of those details, but he does, as Diana said earlier, come to fulfill the hopes of all the different religions, that he doesn't want to be known as a particular religious teacher. He's not a religious teacher. He's an inspirer. He is here to teach self-realization, meaning to help train us to be the inspired scientists of life.
Yeah, but he's also called the Maitreya the Christ because he embodies the Christ principle on this earth at this time. That's his function. That's his role. And one surprising thing I found out about this through the readings of Benjamin Creme, C-R-E-M-E, the principal spokesman for this whole story, is that the Christ is not actually a person, but a role. It's a role in the hierarchy of these very enlightened beings, perfected masters, and that role is to simply embody the energy of love on a given planet at a given time. That's who a Christ is and does. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And so now we had Jesus the Christ, and now we have Maitreya the Christ at the beginning of this age, just as Jesus came at the beginning of the last age.
Even though Gautama called him a Buddha. But, the name Christ means the anointed one. So it's pretty exciting because it's a real... That's why I liked at the beginning when you talked about this new Christian miracle in Marietta, Georgia, that all these different religions are coming to see. The strife between the religions right now. We talk on this show about the views behind the news. All of the strife that's happening is in reaction to these tremendous cosmic energies and energies of love that Maitreya and these other masters are pouring into the world right now. And it's like a healing crisis, It's like you have a cut and you get pus, and then you get, not to name any particular people that might ever run for president, some pretty nasty characters are being stimulated, and the greed and corruption that's already there is really coming to the surface. So it looks like a lot of bad news, but it really isn't. It's a healing crisis. And
in Maitreya, in his messages book that I've told people about, and you can go and see that on the website too, or the Facebook page, he talks about the sword of cleavage. And the sword of cleavage is mentioned somewhere in the Bible, separating the sheep from the goats. I don't understand that image, but it was a shepherd race back then. Anyways, he talks about just that all of these, with the waning of the Piscean age and the arrival of the Aquarian age, that all of the lesser qualities of the age dying out are coming to the surface. And so we have all of these political scandals, we have all of these political absurdities, we have a lot of stuff like that going on. But to cite a very, very clear example of this, we have the massacre that occurred in Paris just a couple of weeks ago. And, that horrible incident spurred on so many people to come out on the side of tolerance and, forgiveness and just reconciliation and all of that kind of thing, that it is, even though it looks like a terrible event, it is actually hastened, the approach of that's available for Maitreya and the masters to come before us. They need to be invited, and that was one example of within unity where Maitreya can actually use those energies.
Well, it's a very, very exciting time on this planet to be alive, and we have a large role to play. Maitreya says, I'm not here to save you. I'm not here to fix everything. I'm here as an architect with a nice set of drawings, and I'm here in response. All the masters are here in response to your own invocative cry. Like, we know in our hearts that we want to have everybody fed. We want education, free education, medical, water, all of these things that are Maitreya's priorities. And he's coming to advise us, and whoever wants to work on a project, there's going to be all of these masters. Many of them are already coming forward all over the world in all the different countries of the world. And they're already starting to work with us on these projects. So even during the first Occupy, some of these masters were actually, as protesters, because they can appear however they want, hunkering down with the kids and really encouraging them to cooperate and to help, have the library and the medical, and how cooperative that first Occupy thing was. And these masters have been at all the demonstrations.
Right. They are definitely among us, and they are definitely here to help and counsel us. We're almost out of time. I can't believe this, Francis. Let me just give a couple of announcements, and if we have time, we'll come back to a last word from you, okay?
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I want people yet again, go and check out all the holiday goodies that you'll find on our Facebook page. And you want to give that page again, Francis?
Share on the Air Radio. .org.
Share on the air radio.org. And Francis, how do they get to this? What's the YouTube called for the Countdown to Now?
That's called Countdown to Now. And there's more to it because it also says Quantum Leap. But I'm sure it's the only Countdown to Now. So enjoy. And I just encourage everybody that your thoughts are creating the world. Mm-hmm. And this is what Maitreya is teaching amongst all his other marvelous teachings of detachment and sincerity, authenticity, and all the other things he's teaching. Pick a place to create your world, whether it's in your family, your neighborhood, your country, or the whole planet. Get active. Everybody's doing it. Join the wonderful young people and elders who are putting their bodies on the line in demonstrations, and let's just all stop living from what we think we know about nature.
Well said. Thank you, Francis. Okay. Well, folks, next week, in our inaugural edition for the new year, we will be having a fireside chat with your co-hosts, Cielito Pascual and myself, Diana Gold Holland, to kick off the year. We might do a little bit of review, on some of the previous shows, but our real topic is going to be 10 top myths about the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. So this will be a particularly interesting show for all of the you newbies who have these kinds of questions that we apologize for thinking everybody knows about. I am giving up apologizing for the new year, so you can call me on that.
Oh, you know what? The thing is, we've had several fabulous shows, and you can go to the archives. On our Facebook page, there's a link to go to the archives and pick different shows on so many topics. I mean, some experts in food security and experts on on the environment, and Elisa Graff last week, my God, talking about her own experiences with UFOs. It's really extraordinary. And
Patricia Pichon that was talking about, searching for Maitreya in her book and all of her experiences in the community where he was living in London, England. I mean, yeah, we have some really, really good shows. And before we go, I also want to invite people to check out the Circles of Light. This one of these miracles, kind of urban crop circles that are appearing on buildings everywhere. If you go to our Facebook page, you can see the pattern. That glossy I was telling you about with all the photos and miracles you can read about. One of them is a picture of those circles of light. You can see what they look like there, so you will recognize them as you walk through the streets of your town. They are appearing everywhere. They are one of these miraculous things. They are a calling card, a gentle calling card from Maitreya and the Space Brothers.
Yeah, I kind of poo-pooed them until one appeared on my building and reflected down onto the sidewalk. And when I stood there in the light, it was a very strong experience of love. So
yeah, that's great. So just before we go, as the music comes up, wishing you the very sane, safe, and bright New Year from all of the team here at Share on the Air Radio. Until next year, see you then with 10 top myths about the emergence of Maitreya, the Masters of Wisdom. Now.